The head in, feet out drills are great to use in any type of defense with a zone. This is when your head is in towards the center of the pool or the 2-meter position and your legs are facing where you want to go. This allows you to step over your legs and gaining ground in your offensive player. So many times a defensive player is swimming out to the guy, which takes less time as well as less pressure. With this big lunge and up and over your hips, it allows the breaststroke kick to get you there quicker and more explosive. The above water camera should illustrate this the best with the opposite hand, or the hand that's in the water. You'll see him lead with that hand and step out in front of him to lead in the direction that he wants to go. Now in the underwater cameras, you're going to see the body in a horizontal position prior to the drill starting. You'll notice the defender steps over his legs. His upper body goes to his legs, not his legs drop underneath his lower body. This allows him to gain ground on that offensive player, to put more pressure and less time for him to think. The last and probably the most important thing is putting the player down. You don't want to put your player down with your shot blocking hand. Keep that up. Once you drop that hand, the offensive player can shoot over you. Keep that field blocking hand up and hit him with the leading hand, the hand that's working hard for you underwater. So a lunge KO, just like in our foul to lunge KO, is when we're a little bit closer distance to our defender. And all we need is one big lunge over our head in, feet out. And our goal is to hit that throwing arm. Don't just hit the body. Big, strong players can absorb a hit on the body and still get a shot off. Your job is to hit with that leading hand, hit that elbow, that way you can disrupt the shot. And at the same time, your field blocking hand is taking your side of the cage. Again, I want to point out the upper body moving to and over the legs, not the legs dropping down in the vertical. This is very important. This makes you and allows you to get out to that offensive player quicker and get a hold of him. Here you see the X3 player do a phenomenal job of lunge KO, moving out over his hips, putting him underwater. Notice one hand is knocking the ball down while the other is shot blocking. Crossover steal is a great time to use late in the game when you need the ball back in your possession. The crossover steal is when the player is in the vertical and he's paying attention or trying to slow the game down and maintaining control of the ball. The best way for a crossover steal is to fake that you're going to put both hands up, and at the last second, your inside hand is going to go across his lower back or mid back, pulling him into you, and with your outside hand going across his body with a big breaststroke kick, you're touching that ball or reaching for that ball. Notice here, put a little pressure on his shoulder. When you put pressure on his shoulder, the offensive player has a tendency to drop down and try to get a quick foul. When you notice him going underwater, lift both hands up at the last second, and you'll see how this defender, as soon as his hands come up, he reaches up and around and reaches for that ball with a big breaststroke kick. Notice how the player is showing his hands and the offensive player is faking a call or looking for a call. As the player looks for the call, he buries his head and the defensive player wraps and grabs up and over him with a big breaststroke kick, moving the offensive player a little bit to the side as he reaches for the ball. This is a great steal. Now the crossover steal in the horizontal position is when a player is releasing for the ball in a horizontal swim, or the two-stroke release that we worked on earlier. And in this position, the defensive player is going to sit back and wait for that pass and anticipate that pass. Now the offensive player's hips are right in front of him. So with that inside hand, he can stroke over those hips and reach for the ball over the defender. That swim stroke looks like a normal swim stroke. It doesn't look like he's coming across or pulling him or dragging him underwater. This is a very disguised steal, and it works often in games. The underwater camera shows that hand from the defender going on top of the hips and pulling himself across to make that steal. In your defensive perimeter game, I can't reiterate how important it is to learn to control your offensive player. Play a chess game with them by keeping your hips up, protecting your body, not being grabbed, as well as being able to move in and out, rotating over your hips. It's extremely important that you really utilize your breaststroke kick more than your egg beater. This is a more powerful, explosive, and quick opportunity to knock down somebody in the perimeter game. So right here is forearm absorb. Your body's in a horizontal position, almost in a stepping position in a driver defense. Notice his forearm is on the shoulder of the offensive player, but his hand is off the player. You're trying to show the referee that you are not fouling or controlling or holding him, but you are maintaining contact. In this drill, you'll notice that the offensive player is pushing the defense player back, but you're okay with that because you're in control of him. Now, if you also notice is that the body stays in horizontal position, so when the offensive player does come back like a rear back or receive the ball, the legs are in proper position to breaststroke kick back on top of the offensive player to foul or control that offensive player. Now we have some clips to show you that are improper clips on what you're doing wrong. One of the biggest tendencies here is when the defensive player drops his hips down in the vertical, the offensive player has the ability to go left, right, or step away and create distance. Now the defensive player, when the offensive player does those motions, has to get his body back up in the horizontal to catch or gain ground on that offensive player. It's a slower process. It's a two-step process compared to keeping your hips up and having it one-step process. So here in the driver defense, you're noticing the sculling action from the defensive player, or stepping action. Here the arms sculling, keeping his distance from the offensive player, but maintaining contact. Notice his eyes as he keeps looking back and visualizing the ball or where the ball is. In the defensive perimeter position, we're always telling our defender, the eyes are on the ball, your hand is touching your defense. This way you're maintaining awareness of both the ball and man. Also notice this, the offensive player takes about 5 to 6, possibly 8 strokes on his drive. If the defensive player can contain this sculling position without taking a stroke, you are one step ahead or the possibility of jumping out on a lot better. The improper way of doing this is when your defender is taking the strokes. Once you take the strokes of the defensive player, you're committing your body in one direction. Committing your body in one direction allows the offensive player to now have one step ahead of you. He can pull back on his legs and receive that ball, and you're already committed in going in one direction. This is why I try to have my defenders not swim on a drive, but use their legs and their hands to maneuver them in a way that they do not get caught going in one direction and having to jump over their hips. Why do we use the protect spin drill? Protect spin drill is when the offensive player grabs one of your limbs and rotates to get inside water. Spinning out of this allows the referee to show that you are not physically holding him, even though he's holding you. A lot of our perimeter defenders get kicked out when they face him instead of spinning out of it. So protect spin yourself. Notice in the spin, you'll see the defensive player going from one hip to the other hip. He doesn't go on his back, which gives the defense leverage on him. He goes from hip to hip, keeping his body in a horizontal position. This defender in these video clips show great hand positioning. Notice his elbow is in contact with the offensive player, and both his hands are out of the water. The more you can show the referee your hands, the less he will engage in the game and call kickouts. Show your hands on drives. This is the best way to play driver defense. In the underwater camera in the protect spin, you'll notice his hips staying in that 45-degree angle, and they're working hard to keep his body above the water, which frees his hands to stay off the defender. If your legs stop moving, you have nothing else but to put your hands on the defense, and this allows the referee to kick you out. What happens when you don't protect spin? Usually what happens is that you're the one being held, but it looks as though you're holding the offensive player. Here you notice the offensive player is struggling through that hold, facing the defender. Your hands are down, they're struggling in the water, defense is always going to be called for it. This is a great way to show the bad way of driver defense. I constantly hear the defender, "Coach, he grabbed me. Coach, he grabbed me." Don't be grabbed, spin out of it, and protect yourself. The extra stroke drill. It's a very vital drill to keep your defenders always thinking of taking the extra stroke. Getting around to the inside position of the offensive player. It's very important. If you stop on the outside shoulder, the referee can engage in the game. Once the offensive player stops that 2-meter line, use that 2-meter line as another defender. Once he gets to that 2-meter line, he can't go any further. Don't rest on his outside shoulder. Get to that inside shoulder by taking 2 extra strokes around and rotating those hips along the surface of the pool. You'll see in the underwater camera the rotation of the hips from the defender player gets him all the way around to the inside position and allows him to have great position to take the referee out of the game. When the defensive player gets lazy and does not take that extra stroke, 9 times out of 10, you'll either get a penalty shot called on him or a kick out. You'll see in these next couple clips how the defense stays on the back and reaches up and over the offensive player, which the referee can now call a 5-meter or ejection. This next drill, the inside 4-meter drill. This is a great drill to have your defense really be on a panic mode to play hard-nosed pressing defense. I want you to pay attention to the defensive player here, how he's constantly in contact with the offensive player. He's utilizing his arms or his legs or his elbows or his shin to make sure that he is aware of where that offensive player is. Once that defensive player loses contact with the offensive player, he immediately rotates his head around, notices where the offensive player is, makes physical contact again, and then swivels his head back to the ball. His awareness of the ball and player is very important to him. Here are some bad ways to do a pressing defense on the drive. The defensive player stops his motion once he gets down to the 2-meter line and loses physical contact with the offensive player. This is a very poor defensive driving position. Why? You're going for the steal. The job is not to try to steal the ball, but to maintain control of the offensive player. You must get to him, that way he cannot fake and beat the goalie on a quick shot. Press your player. Contact with your player. Eyes on the ball, physical contact on your player. Most important part of driver defense is keeping your hips up, trying to stay away from the vertical position. If you can maintain with your hips up, you're able to move on a dime to your left, to your right, forward, or back. The other important element is to contain visual awareness of the ball and your man. Knowing where your man is by physical contact with your forearms and elbows, not your hand. And then your eyes aware of the ball. Where is the ball at all times? Where is your defender at all times? This is what makes a great defender on the perimeter. I want to thank you for watching the videos today. I hope you gained some value from the skills and techniques that you saw, as well as the professional clips that you were able to see when and how it was supposed to be done in the game. It's important for you to stay disciplined to your training, as well as pay attention to the small details. It'll help your game get to the next level. I hope to see you at the pool deck sometime soon. And whenever you're available or want Performance Water Polo Camps to come see you, please contact us through www.pwpcamp.com. Thank you for coming.